Hi, folks. I was talking for like a minute and I realized I was on mute. My name is Alyssa Carpenter. I'm one of the founding members and project director of the Western Arctic Youth Collective. And I'm so grateful for you joining us and for having these first 3 youth participate in this virtual panel experience. I'm participating remotely from Whitehorse on the traditional territory of Kwamandun First Nation and Tohono O'odham First Nation. I am originally from the Western Arctic, very much wishing to be there on the ground with everybody, but alas, COVID realities. So the fact that we can do this even in a virtual sense to incorporate these important conversations and discussions and also showcase is so important. We're hosting this in collaboration with the Gwich'in Council International and other stakeholder groups. And a lot of what these films are based upon that I've encouraged other people to watch with Project Creates are really connected to a little bit more of an initiative, just like more around wellness, life promotion, and just community engagement and support. So before we have our speakers share a little bit more about themselves, I am going to just have them quickly introduce themselves. You'll have a bit more time to talk about yourself, but we'll do a quick roundtable to share who you are and where you're participating from, just for some folks here who are listening. And just a note again that this is being recorded. We are going to be sharing this on social media after this for folks to listen, because I feel like youth are powerful. These 3 themselves have so much to share, and what I've learned from them very quickly, I'm inspired myself. This is like a beautiful way to spend my week. Yeah, I'm so grateful. So I'm gonna ask Shania to go first, then Annie, and then Wilfred, and then we'll give them some time to share about themselves. Go ahead.
Masi Alyssa. Hello, everyone. My name is Shania Young. I am a Tlicho citizen currently living in Yellowknife. I was born and raised here in Yellowknife, close to my mother's family in Veshikal. I am a practicing registered nurse here in Yellowknife, and in my spare time, I do a lot of work around mental wellness advocacy, specifically around youth and I guess young adults. And then I guess I'll pass it to Annie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Annie Buscemi. I am connecting from Nunavut, where I currently live and where I was born. I'm an apprentice electrician, currently not working due to an injury, but I also am a mental health advocate for the Inuit. Yeah, I'll pass it over to Wilfred. Thank you.
First, I gotta make sure you guys can hear me because I haven't tested it. Yakecha, Yakech Shatini, Yake Sekam Sanitach, Taksoech Yuchatu Salk. Good afternoon, my name is Taksoech Lekachenach Wilfred Johnston. I am calling in from Whitehorse, Yukon. I am a Gwich'in Council citizen. I belong to the Eagle clan. We'll leave it there. You're gonna learn a lot about me. I'll share a lot more.
Masi Cho Kuinaini. Hi Cho, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. As folks kind of come in, but I'm gonna let you folks take this. We want this to be informal. We want this to be a safe space, but mostly we want to hear your perspectives. So I'm not gonna tell you what that looks like. So I'm gonna ask Shania to share a little bit more, if that's all right, and then we'll pass it on. And maybe we'll save questions after every single person has had a chance to share a little bit. And I'm not going to tell you how much time, but I figured 10 minutes was a good aim because I want to hear more about you. I want to hear wellness from your perspective. I want to hear why it's important. I want to hear really what is lacking, but mostly what do you think would really help shape things when we think of the future for young people and just, for the future for our communities. It's such an important topic. So Shania, I'm gonna pass it to you. I'm excited to learn more.
Thanks, Alyssa. Wasn't expecting to go first, but I can always roll with the punches and go from there. So like I said, I currently live in Yellowknife. I've lived here my entire life. I'm going to apologize now. My dogs have not had a walk. You will probably hear them pacing or making sounds. I do apologize in advance. But while I was in my second year of nursing here in Yellowknife, I started to go through a lot mentally. I was having a really hard time in school, I was having a hard time focusing, and all kind of like the side effects that go from there. And I realized that I can't really take care of other people as a nurse if I have a hard time taking care of myself. And it was something that was really difficult to acknowledge, having these struggles, because I'm expected to do so much as a healthcare provider and care for others. And around that time that I was going through all this self-reflection, I came across a charity called Jack.org, which is a mental health charity based in Toronto. And that kind of began my mental wellness advocacy journey from there. That was back in 2017 now that I think about it. So it's been almost 4 or 5 years now. Through those years, I've learned that there's quite a bit of disparities we see in the North here when it comes to mental health and wellness. And I see that everywhere. I see it not just in Yellowknife.
I was just telling.
I think Alyssa, I think your mic is still on. Thank you. Where was I at? Anywho, but since then, since I'm with Jack.org, I've joined a number of other organizations. It's okay. Another number of other organizations to try and gain perspectives on mental health, what it's like across the country, but also in the North. I have a couple other projects on the side that I do. Mainly was started with Jack.org, and now I've kind of expanded from there. Some of the work that I've done is involving a post-secondary mental health standard with the Mental Health Commission. I do some work with Kids Help Phone, a couple other local organizations here in Yellowknife. And I find I do a lot of things like that because I want to gain perspective and learn more about what we can do in the future. And I see in the North, we have such long periods of wait times. We have not culturally appropriate resources that are available. And as an Indigenous person, seeing that firsthand, we know the benefits of our culture and of our land and how that affects our mental wellness. And we don't have enough of those supports here in the North, even really across Canada in general. And we see that a lot of our young people are struggling. Unfortunately, within the North, suicide rates, hospitalization rates, they're not properly kept or stored for data or research purposes. So we don't really know those comparisons. So when you look at the North versus a scale on the South, our numbers aren't actually going to be completely accurate. We're going to have higher rates because of our low population as well, but we don't actually know how true those rates are, unfortunately. And we see lots of young people in our communities, even in like our capital cities like Yellowknife, Iqaluit, Whitehorse, where we have more resources, youth still struggle and they don't know what to access. They probably have lots of other barriers that are in place, such as homelessness, poverty, lack of education, lack of opportunities to reach out. They don't know where they should be going. And it really starts from supporting our youth from the ground up. We need to promote this mental wellness and mental health from the beginning of our lives. We shouldn't just start later on when they get to high school and start to have these struggles. And as an Indigenous person as well, we see the effects of colonialism on our society and our people. We see how they say it's going to take so many generations for residential schools to impact us, but we also see how the loss of our culture, the loss of our language. As a young Indigenous woman who doesn't know her language and has a hard time learning it, I find that's such an important piece of my wellness that I want to gain, is using my culture for my mental wellness and my healing purposes. But it's difficult to do that because I wasn't given the same opportunities as other people before us were, and that's due to many different other effects in our history. But we do see that there are slowly becoming more culturally relevant resources. We see land-based mental health resources. There's a really good organization in Yellowknife based out of here called the Arctic Indigenous Wellness Foundation, and they do a lot of land-based mental wellness. They approach it from a different way, and they see lots of great success. And I really hope that we can move in a direction like that. And I think that's part of the reason that I join so many different groups and want to gain all these perspectives, is because we see the success with people using our cultural relevant resources, but we don't have those enough. As someone who's experienced a couple issues reaching out for mental health services, the wait times, the discrimination against Indigenous peoples, especially within our healthcare system. We already have such a distrust in the healthcare system as Indigenous people, and it's difficult to want to reach out. I know from my own experience when I was trying to reach out for my own mental health, it took a lot of work because you're scared of what people will think of you. You're scared of acknowledging that there is something that you need to do about yourself. And I think that is the biggest step that we need to overcome as youth. But many people struggle with their mental health at any given point in their lives. You don't have to be diagnosed with a mental illness to reach out for help or want to talk to people about your mental health. And I think that's an important thing that we need to learn to acknowledge. I found through my experience that here in the North, I find we're a little bit behind the times. There's more conversations happening in the South around mental wellness. We see more resources opening up. We see all these different conversations and connections being made. And I find in the North, we're still a little bit behind. We haven't started those basic conversations in our communities about what mental wellness is, because unfortunately, due to our histories and all that type of things, our parents, our aunties, our uncles, they weren't taught those proper wellness strategies. They were taken away from them because a big part of our culture was our spirituality, our wellness. And it's hard to teach that to the next generation if you're already having a hard enough time struggling with that yourself. And so it's not just youth who need a lot of help when it comes to their mental health. It's accessing the whole community, our parents, our elders, our aunties, our cousins, going from there and making sure that everyone holistically, spiritually, physically, mentally, everything is healing together so that we can move forward together as a community, as a family. And that takes a lot of work. And even though if we are a little bit behind, we do see improvements. And I do, in the last couple of years that I've been doing this work, I have seen some improvements, and I've seen more youth become active in different community groups, active on social media about mental health, about different advocacy groups like Black Lives Matter, or at the moment, there's a lot of discussion around Asian Americans and Asians in general with discrimination. We see youth are getting more active, and I'm super excited and looking forward to seeing more youth like Annie, who is recently, I just saw Annie on Saturday at Northern Summit, but it makes me excited to see these youth using their voices for their platforms. And I hope that we can continue to see that and continue to see change, not only in mental health, but in our culture, in our wellness, in our connections. And I think that's where I'll end. I'll pass it over to Annie, who I think is next, but Masi for letting me take up some space, share my story, share my perspectives.
Masi Chokli and Naini, appreciate it so much. And just what I've seen and have seen you speak on platforms, I applaud that. And it's so encouraging to see youth really take up that space because you deserve it. You have so much to share with the experiences you're at and you're grabbing it. So thank you so much. And Annie, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Hi guys, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really excited. First, I want to thank Shania for speaking. You are really well spoken, and I enjoyed what you shared with us today. I'm going to start off by being a little bit vulnerable. One of the biggest reasons why I started my Lack page and started listing reasons to stay alive was a lot for myself. As an apprentice electrician, I really, really love what I do, and I was really devastated when I was injured and not able to go to work since I haven't been at work since September, and today's March, I think. But it's been a long time, and it's really draining to have to sit and wait like this. But which is why, and I also have a history of mental health issues where sometimes I found myself in a hospital or, just not in a really good place. And I was, for the amount of devastation that I was in September, I was scared. I was really terrified of what I could do or what I couldn't do, or like I was in a really foggy state of mind at that point. And there was one day I was inspired by another TikTok creator, and she was listing reasons to stay alive. And she was a woman named Delaney in the States, somewhere in the States. And I was really inspired because all of her reasons were simple and, the kind of things that you may overlook in life. And I was really inspired because I was in a really deep spot in my life at that time. And I followed her for a little while, and then I started thinking, maybe I could do the same thing, with the really high suicide rates that we have up here, not only up here in Nunavut, but Indigenous people as a whole, especially males. But with the really high suicide rates and with my current mental state at that time, I wanted to do something about it. And before I started posting reasons to stay alive, I made sure I had at least I think I had 10 reasons. And I'm like, okay, 10 reasons. I can start with that. I'll start with one each day. And I started on October 1st because it was a new month, and I was like, okay, new month. I want to start something new. I want to keep myself positive, and I want to keep myself healthy. And I started posting them, and very quickly people started resonating with it. Very quickly, them saying these reasons out loud. They're like daily affirmations, and I would say them over and over and over just to get try to get the perfect wording, make sure it's all captioned and edited properly, and just not just for other people, but for myself. I would make a video, and then I would listen. I would listen to a video for at least an hour straight. Sometimes I would just put my headphones on and I would just listen to it over and over and over. And it was like daily affirmations for myself, hearing my own voice, and to stay alive. It was such a powerful thing for me to start, and it's gotten me to amazing places, speaking at things like Jack.org with the Northern Summit. I'm doing many youth panels just like this one. So many interviews, and with the first Woman of the Year, I think that was the hugest shock for me, because I still really struggle, and every day is every day is different, and some days are harder than others. But it's not easy when you're tackling such a huge topic like this. Suicide is still very prevalent. It's still there, it's still happening, and it's really hard. But I really believe that being open and vulnerable about this stuff, speaking up, telling other people what you struggle with, even with the tiniest things, maybe I couldn't get out of bed that day, and just to be open, starting small, taking those small steps to healing is so important. And just being vulnerable in general, I learned really quickly that when I allow myself to be vulnerable and open, it makes a safe space for other people to be open and vulnerable. And there were many times where I've spoken at things like this, and then other people have reached out and said something, and that means the whole world to me. When people message me, or when just about saying that these videos help them, I look forward to your videos every day. Just all of these small comments mean the whole world to me, and it's quite amazing and a little bit overwhelming doing work like this. I've always been such a shy and anxious person. I've never been able to be vulnerable like this. I had such a shell for my whole life, pretty much growing up. I've always had a hard time opening up and being vulnerable. But once you take those steps to be open and vulnerable, it opens so many doors, and you get to have those important conversations with people, reconnecting with people. I've reconnected with people from middle school and high school. and just that, it's so important, and I really wanted to thank Alyssa for allowing me to, for giving me opportunities like this. She was actually the first person that reached out to me after I started listing reasons to stay alive. That was the first youth panel that I've spoken at, was with Alyssa, and I think that was an opening to something that I was always so scared of. It's such a hard topic to talk about, and a lot of people are scared or even hurt. It hurts to do work like this, but it's so important. And thank you so much. I think I'm going to pass it over now. Thank you so much for allowing me to talk.
Thank you so much, Annie, and for that just share of appreciation. I'm so grateful for you and what you do. It's a lot. It's so much what you're doing and putting out into the universe for people to access on a platform that sometimes is very prone to be negative or toxic. And you've really taken it in a way and of just like reminding people like they're loved and it's okay to be vulnerable, and that asking for help is okay. So you're helping normalize what I really hope our generation is really starting to do when we think back, because it's so powerful. And I'm just so grateful for you for being here and starting us off and sharing that vulnerably. Being vulnerable is beautiful, makes you stronger. And I'm so grateful for that. So thank you so much for being here and making that time. And Wilfred, I'm going to pass it over to you, buddy. I just met Wilfred like 2 weeks ago. I've seen him speak how many times already? It's pretty life-changing. We might go to Old Crow together. Who knows? I'm going to pass it off to you.
Wrong button. I wanted to take a quick second to ask the individuals, even if you don't have to turn on your video, you don't have to turn on your audio, you could even type it in to see where it is you all are from that I'm speaking with. Holly Jones, I believe, has a class of students, so I mean they're sitting somewhere, and I just wanted to get an idea, and this will lead somewhere. So if I can maybe get Devlin Fernandez, Gwich'in Council, where are you calling out of? Yellowknife, Yakecha. And Holly Jones, where is your group?
I just put in the chat.
Okay, cool. And Nunavut. Alrighty. Annie, Charlie?
I'm from Nunavut, Northwest Territories as well.
Okay, cool. Dakota Norse.
Yeah, I'm from Nunavut as well, but I live in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan at the moment.
Cool. Right on. As for JC, I know where she's from, what she does, what she's about. She's pretty cool. Amy Uris is joining in from Yellowknife. Cool. And Alyssa, I know it's calling from Whitehorse. Yet again, we know. I just want to say hi to the other youth panel, Shania, Annie. Let me make my introduction and tell you what helps me with what I think is a huge part of mental health, which is identity. I believe nowadays identity, when we grow up with that question of being told who we are, or we ask who we ourselves who we are, it defines your mentality of how you walk this earth. So for myself, taksaway yukhatu wasalk, taksaway di ayakhat, taksaway ayaach sayi, Walter Fox sayi, Gwich'in Council, Wilfred Johnston, Coach na ayakhat, Yid tat da ka singit ani. Wait ish ka singit ani. Chalk na ayachat. Kokitan dachkan ayachat. Desling Kwan away Ukhan. I was saying Takshaweich is what you call me. Takshaweich was my given name when I was born from my great grandmother. Um, Takshaweich Ayach Sayi is my namesake. So in our culture, um, we are given names that belong to people before. So Walter Fox had this name before myself. Dakshawedi Ayachat Dakshawedich Chatseti. I belong to Dakshawedi people. I am maternally born into the Dakshawedi clan, which is of the Tlingit people. Singit Ayachat, I am Tlingit. And we have a clan system along the west coast. And for those of you who are not familiar with Tlingit or Singit, I would believe that many of you have traveled as far as Vancouver or the island, and you see the West Coast native art, the ovoid designs, the totem poles. Those are West Coast people, and us Tlinkits are from the most northwest um, region of Southeast Alaska. Um, but we now live here on the inland in Yukon, so we have territory in northern BC and in southern Yukon, but we originate from Southeast Alaska. Uh, I say let's speak in our own language, our own native language. And what I would like to share with you is how culture has helped my identity and how identity has helped my mental health. Because I'm 29 years old. I was born 1992, and I don't want to sound like an old timer because people tell me that I'm just like an old timer. To me, it's a compliment. In the end, when I speak of this, I actually seen and witnessed a lot in my life, a lot of really good things, and I've also seen and witnessed a lot of change. Um, when I was growing up in my little village, Teslin, Deslin, I was very privileged. I was very blessed to have had my great grandmother and my grandmother take care of me, and this is the very reason why I speak Khayukhatangi, our language. We I grew up I grew up in a very cultural community, and this is going to be related to what's missing in our community and what's missing or lacking in our community. Because when I was growing up, I had a lot of culture upbringing, and over the years, a lot of it has dissipated. So what I believe um, is lacking now is more of our songs and drums. And we have at our fingertips insight on the whole world to talk about what's going on in the world. And I look at these as some of them are good distractions, but I see a lot of negative distractions as to um, what impacts of what we think should be going on in our lives. And what I mean by that is, like, when you grow up in a small community that we all come from, you start to question your own life. You start to question where you belong, where you'd like to visit. But home is always home. We come from the communities that we come from, in a sense that we'll eventually fall in love with it deep enough to know that we have a place to call home, a comfort to come home. And what I think is really important, that those of us of Indigenous heritage, we have direct evidence to show where we are from, and we have a sense of belonging to the continents that we come from. When I think for myself, when I started to notice all this change, when there wasn't as many, like, for example, when I lost all all my elders that I used to speak our language with when when they had all moved on to what I believe is the next world. It was very difficult for me. I got this sense of loneliness, and we we all live in this really tough time right now. Um, the changes that had happened in the last few years have been so significant, and we are living in a time where so much technology and so much just technology alone I'll speak about, and like the way the world is walking, the direction the world is walking about what they look at with life has changed in a sense where we need to take a break from what the world is doing sometimes and focus with our identity and our people. And I don't even do that, let alone with my own village. Right now, I'm just getting back into speaking with youth and sharing what it is that I have to share. I'm actually a co-founder on a nonprofit organization that started years ago called Our Voices, and this was to work with youth, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, and a focus of kids who, and we welcome every kids, but our main focus is to work with youth who were at risk. And I jumped into it right away because I was a youth at risk. I was an unhappy child, but I have great memories, but now they're just memories, and that's the way life works. In the end, I got involved with this because I remember it like yesterday when I was skinning a beaver with my great grandmother on the Teslin beach, and she was just in her element. I was in my element. Her element was showing her great grandson how to take care of beaver meat and beaver skin. My element was to be there and learn that from my great grandmother. And in her element, she was just telling me stories of exactly like where we come from. So I recognize how privileged I was to have that in my life. And as she was telling me this story, she just stopped abruptly and looked at me, holding her bloody knife and skin in the other hand. She told me, listen to me. She says, you know, everything I tell you, everything I teach you, everything that you learn from me, it does not belong to you. That belongs to everyone you're going to teach, everyone you're going to share with. And that really didn't resonate with me until I grew up a bit later, because like I didn't realize she's dropping these huge truth bombs on my lap as a little child. But like really when I was growing up and thinking about her and missing her and craving her love, I would have those great memories. And what I learned from that, sorry, someone's phone's going off. What I've learned from that is that I have things that I can share, and I had people to share them with me. So it's about me to give it back. So now I believe that anything I learn about any indigenous culture does not belong to me. It's to share. And I'm not using notes. Like I'm actually speaking from my heart here, and this is why I'm actually so comfortable like speaking on a screen, is because I actually explained to Alyssa before, I have no problem public speaking so long as that I know what I'm talking about. And that's where I take my steps forward, is I do the things that I know how to do. And growing up in the lifestyle that I did, I became very aware that I was genuinely interested and curious about all walks of life, all culture. Um, so with JC, I know she's Tedlit Gwich'in. They come from Fort McPherson. And then if we speak about those of you who are in Nunavut, you're either Inuvaluit or Edi Tutquichin or Ni Tutquichin. And I believe Ni Tutquichin comes from a Clavic. Edi Tutquichin is a mixture of Inevaluate and the Gwich'in people. So to you, I say Trin Gweenzi, Van Gweenzi if you're just waking up. For Yellowknife, Annie Charlie's Van Tut Gwich'in and Tetlit Gwich'in and Cascadena, Yakay. So I know Old Crow people very well. What I did with my life, where I'm going with this is, I've got numerous friends that have come back from Mexico. They come back from Toronto. They come back from Europe. They come back from all these with these great stories. And my stories are about going to Iqaluit, going to Yellowknife, going to Gamati, Wati. Shania might likely know these places. They are in Clicho territory. So with you, I say Como de Hozi, which is Clicho Dogrib Dene language. Good afternoon. I was when I go to other communities, I always make my best effort to learn about um, whose whose land I'm in, whose territory I'm in, and I always try to learn a bit of their language. With Devlin Fernandez, I can't help but be curious, but Fernandez sounds like a very Spanish name. Entonces, he estado estudiando español en escuela para muchos meses, para cuando voy y visito Machu Picchu en Lima, Perú. Hay no problema, pero tú no hablas español, pero es importante para la indígena estudiar el lenguaje del mundo. I was saying I've been studying Spanish in school, and language has always been a curiosity of mine, and it's exactly how we speak to each other. What is most important with language to me is that when I was actually flown to Inuvik and then had to take a boat trip from Inuvik to Aklavik on the Peel River, I was speaking on a youth panel to talk about language and culture. And I was very younger, and this youth had actually asked. I was on a panel like this, except there wasn't COVID, and we didn't have to do this through a screen. We were actually in the Aklavik gymnasium, and in front of me was about 400 residents of the Aklavik community, and I was on stage with 3 elders from the Aklavik territory and 2 other youths of the youth panel, and I was on the youth panel, and they were told that they can ask any question they want to any of the participants. And this young Eddie Tutpachin man raised his hand and said, "I have a question for Wilfred." And so he asked this question that made my heart race, stumped me, made me realize that I'm standing in front of 400 people to talk about culture and language, and I didn't know how to answer his question. And his question was, "Wilfred, how is it? And what is it that makes you learn other people's language?" And I froze. That's when I was like, whoa, they just flow you up to a clavic and your heart's racing and you don't know how to answer this question. But I just said something that definitely just came from the heart. And what I said is that when you try to learn someone else's language, you're genuinely making an effort to try and understand them. You are meeting them on their level. You are trying to get to know them, how they are and where they come from. So I mean, I just always love languages, always have, and I mean, for the language that Annie would come from, I think all I know is Uvlami, good morning. Unasukut, I think, good afternoon. Kanuit Pit, how are you? Kanuin Nua is a reply. Languages are not easy to learn for some, and they're sometimes very easy. But why I'm saying this is because this actually really helped me with my identity. And so when I speak in my language, Khayu Khatangi, I'm reminded where I'm from, how it is that our people walk our life. That's city, my grandma would always say. We come from strong people. Every day, try to use your language. You only improve when you use it. No. She wished that right there. She wished that Slinkit would last forever. That was her. That was a message. Let Clinkets exist forever. So I could say Klech Inuit Kogagasti, let Inuit exist forever. Klech Gwich'in Kogagasti, let Gwich'ins exist forever. Um, our culture, our identity, they have a lot of strong messages inside. With this language, the language that we speak now, English, I find English very boring. When you learn indigenous languages, um, you can't say some of the things that we say in our languages. You can't speak about things in a sense that how we speak about them. And for me, when I started learning all these languages and when I started focusing on mine, I thought, wow, what a beautiful thing. Like, how difficult will it be when, if it ever is to become something lost or to be spoken about in history? So I think our struggle right now is that we don't have a lot of people to go to, but yet I know it for a fact that we still have people to go to. And if we can expect that to change, I would encourage anyone to make as much effort as they are or as they could. I know JC's working with it. She's actually teaching. She's preparing my Gwich'in speech for when me and Alyssa do go up to Old Crow. um, so if we're going to speak about distractions from our culture and from our language, I would hope that some of your distractions would be reaching out to elders and picking up some books that actually are written from some people who don't even come from our culture, because I actually learned a bit about our language from people who do not come from my people, but they have studied it and they have put the work in, and they are making efforts to save this, to save our identity. My one of my grandmas, she actually had this message to say that your identity, or no, she would say our culture is in our language. And what she wants from that is to everyone speak the language, because you can't, again, you can't say the things that you can say. Some suggestions, if you are in a community where you have dance groups, if you are in a community that has language initiatives, give it a try, give it your all. You may be very surprised and relieved with what kind of student you become, because right now I'm a student to life entirely. It's really exciting to see what the world has to share, and this has distracted me from the mental health problems that I've had growing up. It's not like I've always been smiling. There's a whole nother story that I don't want to get into, but I will share with you that I'm 19 months sober today, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful new beginning for me. And I come from a small community where I was living in a community where a lot of people on my age were careless or lost, and I was running with them like we were a wolf pack. But I made changes for my life, but I did not change my friendships. I still hang with them. I still love them because they share so much of my past, and in the end I actually try to help them as much as I can. And I didn't do this alone. I didn't change overnight. I, it took me a long time. It took me a long time, and I had to ask for help. And I got the help that I needed, but only because I asked. I feel like I took up a lot of time there, but I'm going to take every chance and opportunity to share what messages we have on these given invitations. So thank you. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for letting me see you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Masi Cho Kuyanini, so much for that. I love when people share and go off like that, but it's just me. Does anyone have questions for these three youth? I will share that Shania has to step away at 2:00. So if anything is asked of them, they've offered to answer some questions that we may have based on what they've shared or what was relatable or what they took away. You could go off mute or you could put it here and I can ask them for you.
Hi, Dakota here. I just want to say, first of all, Masi, thank you to everybody who spoke. It's really amazing to see all these conversations come together. As someone who's been working with youth for a long time, I feel like, as someone else mentioned, like the past year or two has been really amazing for social media and panels and just in general raising awareness, and to take the time out of your lives to attend and even create whole organizations around these things. I want to say, yeah, thanks to all of you for putting in the effort to do that and being vulnerable and being leaders in your own ways. Relatedly, I have a question, whoever feels called to respond. I feel like a lot of youth, like someone like, say, Amy, I know Amy pretty well. If you have an organization or a cause that you want to support, it feels like, all of a sudden you're pulled in a million directions. Everybody, every organization wants to hear your voice, which is amazing to have the support and to the recognition and the demand for that. But at the same time, I feel like it creates such a huge burden, especially for, if you're not associated with an organization. Some youth, you may be getting called to speak to a million panels or talk to people in so many different ways, but it's not a full-time job for most people. So I guess my question is, like, how do you think people in this space can be supported to do the work that they do, recognizing that, there isn't a whole lot of full-time jobs or grants and things like that available to support all the people who would probably like to work on this stuff and doing stuff like on the land camps, language, culture related things. Although they're amazing, there's probably nowhere near enough resources right now available to run all the sorts of things that we want to be doing. So I guess I'll very quickly try to summarize this. How do we support the youth working in this space, emotionally, in terms of like their time, protecting from burnout, financially, to participate in these sorts of things, stuff like that?
I can jump in if people aren't sure where to go with it. I think that's a really important question that oftentimes gets overlooked. So Masi, Dakota, as a youth advocate, I did a lot of my advocacy beginning of when I was in school, and it's still more of something on the side. And I think many organizations don't acknowledge burnout among advocates. It is quite tiring, like Annie was saying earlier. You have your own struggles on the side, and oftentimes those who are in this wellness advocacy space often have their own struggles as well. And it's important to acknowledge that, because that's oftentimes how you get so many connections within this area. And like Wilfred was saying, with those connections and how important they can be. I think something that's important to acknowledge is from the get-go saying, I understand that this is not your full-time job. There's so many things we would like to do, giving distinct time frames and like how many, like what you can expect, and having clear expectations. Like this should take 4 hours a month, this should take this much. And acknowledging the person saying, I understand if this is too much, how can we be best accommodating? Especially for those who, like our apprentices, are in school, have full-time jobs. I don't know if any of the other speakers would like to add something.
Yeah, like it's a, you know, the because it's such an important question, it actually makes it almost a difficult question for myself to answer. But to speak on it, I'm actually just learning now how to make that happen, and how I can best make myself available to do the things I want to do, and to give myself that space and others that space to show them what I want to learn. Because like Annie, I'm actually a third year apprentice for plumbing and gas fitting, and I was speaking about distractions, and like to me, that this my my heart's here right now. um I'm not thinking about the plumbing job that I have to do, but with this colonized life that we have to work with is almost difficult, because it's almost like, well, what is this lifestyle that we live in right now? It's like, well, what is most important to what is most importantly need to be done right now? Do we need to work with our language? Do we need to work with mental health? Or do we need to make money for ourselves? And like, so I guess to speak on that, it's about finding, we so I'll speak on our voices for what little initiative I had in there, which is that nonprofit organization we started. We we reached out to the Yukon territorial government with a letter, and we gave them a whole mission statement about exactly what it is we wanted to achieve and what help it is we were asking for. And we also reached out to all of the 14 First Nations that were inside the Yukon, and they are all not all of them. There 11 of them are actually sovereign First Nations. So it's really different as to where where you come from and what territory or province that you live in. Because the Yukon, we have sovereign First Nations. We have 11 of us are self-governed First Nations, and then there's 3 who haven't signed, so they are yeah, they just don't have self-governance. They are lacking the word for it. They're just it's really interesting with them too, because they are in a situation where they are neither a reservation, it's unsettled land, nor are they a self-governed First Nation entity. And so they didn't make agreements with the Canadian government to have funding dollars come in, but there's initiatives that are inside the Canadian um, fundings that can help. But really, if you want to create space for people to support youth in this, um, it's an important thing to almost discuss. You know, initially we started our voices with a nonprofit organization, but we quickly, because it was so new, and because all of this change we wanted to happen was so exciting, we of course jumped right into it, at the cost of our own time and our own life, and to be distracted from our own distractions. And initially, like, yes, I wanted to do that, and I did do that. And in the end, it set me back with my colonized life. I was like, okay, I got to get back into this other lifestyle that I'm living. So what's becoming a discussion now is to somehow find funding and support for paid initiatives. Um, you know, I actually am not hesitant to share this because I think it's such a strong message from a chief who was elected a few years back for the Tushone First Nation. He had a quote saying that the they took our language away from us and they got paid to do it. Why don't they pay to put our language back? And so I was just like, that's really heavy, and I don't want to get into as to why exactly, but the message is important. Is that there should be dollars available to Indigenous people to learn their language, and whether we can see that happen anytime soon, I'm not sure, but it's conversations that I'm starting to ask myself, and that I would like to see if we can make possible. You would be surprised yet how much the Canadian government or the territorial or provincial governments want to help Indigenous initiatives work with youth and to give them the space. And there's, you know, it's been so long, I can't even remember these initiatives that reached out to our voices, because we made a pretty big impact. I think it was Tides Canada. Yeah, it was Tides Canada. There's a place called initiative called Tides Canada that actually funds initiatives like our voices. Um, but really, we found this amazing lady who's the regional chief of the Yukon, and she pulled together this amazing team. So sometimes it just takes a single person who's very savvy with who is doing what and where and what they're capable of. And we made a team, and this team made our voices, and our voices made change and created some ruckus. And then everyone's like, "What are you doing? We want to be a part of it." So I mean, to get a team together and to create those spaces to speak about those things that are what can be tough questions or what can be fun and exciting questions is you'd be surprised with setting goals, setting dreams, and then just going for it and seeing how many people want to be a part of and share what they can share with you to make what you want to happen. I hope that's an answer.
Yeah, that was very helpful. For myself, I was working recently on a program, and we're considering like, should we add mental health funds like for support, especially in like the COVID context, because programming's different, people are having more challenges and whatnot. And somebody said like, why should we be paying for the services that like government should be paying for? Like, isn't that a weird situation? And it sounds like something is reflected in what you're saying there. Like, and I think a part of it is just recognizing and being proactive about the supports that do exist, or at least asking, whether it's asking like someone you know or for those funds. In my experience, or in my view, I think that's what maybe stuff like the people on this call, the Western Arctic Youth Collective, can do, is, you know, be able to coordinate and like access those resources, whereas an individual might have, you know, maybe not the time or whatever availability to be able to do that independently. So anyways, that's kind of what I got out of what you're saying. Thank you to you. Thanks to you both for that. Very helpful.
Awesome. It's Alyssa. Does anyone else have any other questions? We booked them till 2:30. There is a question up here. Someone doesn't want to say anything vocally. From JC. JC, do you want to ask yourself?
I'll try. Wilfred, I was interested. This is kind of a language. Knowing your language in English, does that make it easier for you to learn other languages? Let's see.
Alrighty. Um, you know, it was really interesting. I really think that when I was growing up, what I know helped is actually hearing the phonemes, which is what I'll have to Google it exactly. Annie looked like she can almost speak on it. So I was able to hear. I constantly grew up listening to these sounds that my great grandmother and my grandfathers and my grandmother would make when they speak to each other. And so when I was growing up hearing this, I I was retaining those sounds, and that's what made it easier for me to speak the words in Tlingit. So for myself, I kind of grew up speaking it. Um, except I always heard "Manak sawaye kanak nich." Why are you always doing that? Um, when I was also growing up in class in Teslin, we had our own Tlingit language class with a Tlingit language teacher who was Tlingit. Um, but you know, with we never had a written language. All of us, many of us, we never we grew up just living our life. This is how you say this. This is what that is, and we didn't grow up speaking. We didn't grow up writing it. Not I shouldn't say we. Our ancestors didn't grow up writing it. They didn't grow up saying that this is this, this is that. But my teacher in Teslin, she did her very best. She would go up to the chalkboard, and she didn't because and be, and it and it is because she was um like in her 50s, grew up speaking the language, never had it taken away from her, thank God. That she wanted to share, and I'm so happy she did all that she could to share because a lot of it resonated with me. But she was 50 years old when she decided that she wanted this help make this language continue, and in her efforts she would write things on the chalkboard. And when she would have all these written things on the chalkboard, it would be a lot of like, this is how you say it. So if we were going over masa iti, which is how are you, she would just make us go ma sa I yati, ma sa yati. And it was just it was the only way that she was ever familiar with to teach language. um and why I speak on this is because when I actually went to high school, um I had this I still have this dream. Actually, I'm supposed to be in South America right now. COVID happened. I'm supposed to be backpacking porque yo hablo español, because I speak Spanish. And why I speak Spanish is because when I was in grade 10, I came up with this idea that I wanted to go backpacking. Long story short, I ended up signing up to go into Spanish class in high school for 3 semesters, and yikes, I came out of high school 3 semesters later with an average 98%. I could read and write in Spanish. You know what my English mark was? 66. I uh, I realized that I can do some pretty cool things if I give it my all. And Spanish class had my all. But in Spanish class, she was able she see they've been writing and teaching Spanish language for a really long time. They had pens, they had ink, they had ideas. They were able to break down words. They were able to tell you what is a verb, what is a consonant, what is a but with indigenous languages, that's all very new, and people have done it, but there's just not a lot of teachers who have been taught on how to do that. And So with my Tlingit teacher back in Teslin, she wasn't capable to talk about conjugation, to break down words. I actually only now have a select few Indigenous teachers who are able to explain that to me on a big on the broader scale as to what the word actually composes. Um, so in a way, it's when I learned Spanish, having grown up speaking very little Tlingit, that my vocabulary and my understanding for the Tlingit language grew, because I was actually able to take what was taught from my Spanish teacher speaking about the Spanish language and talk about and place it, take from it and put into breaking down my Tlingit language. And I'm like, oh, that's got to be the verb. That's got to be this. I'm going to share with you very quickly this word. I'll just say it. It's my favorite, one of my favorite Tlingit words. Tu khayetki. Tu is it's actually, so tu khayetki is one word, and it means seed. A seed that grows, and it will like it could be any kind of seed. But when you break the word down, tu means the inside or the interior surface of what we normally West Coast people talk about, like wooden carven boxes. So like it'd be like a bent wood box which would hold our drums or our regalia. So if you say wait, it's inside that interior surface. It's tu. But if you say ka, that means on top of a surface. Or akul ka kaweya. My cup is on top of the table. Ka is on top of or on the interior on top surface. So tu, interior surface. Ka, on top of surface. Yetki means seed. I mean, yetki means children or children of. So when you break that word down now, you're actually saying tu kayetki, interior surface. So let's imagine a seed. Inside the seed, it has an interior surface and a horizontal top surface. Ka is that top surface. Yetki is children. So when you say tu kayetki, the English translation is seed. But we're saying there's children living on that horizontal surface inside that closed interior surface. So there's things that grow from there. And I actually only have one teacher who was able to teach me that. And that blew my mind. What is in our languages. That's how they say seed, children inside this surface on top of another surface. And so these seeds grows trees, they grow flowers, they grow plants. They're children, and the idea is that these children will grow and they will leave more to khayatri. They will leave more children to grow from another surface. And it's just so beautiful, but I wasn't able to actually grasp that until I learned Spanish to talk about conjugation. You could even learn that with if you further your education with an English language as well. They will talk about conjugation. They will talk about adjectives. But like I said, when I was in high school, my English mark was 66%. My Spanish mark was 98%. So I'm just working with what I have now. Again, I hope that's an answer.
Thank you, Wilfred. It's quarter after the hour. Does anyone have any other questions that they would like to ask? I always have questions, but I talk a lot. Annie, I want to share, if it's okay with you, what you helped me create. You shared some beautiful Stay Alive messages, and I would love to share my screen. But I also have a question for you, because I think something when we think of vulnerability, you've already echoed that to us. but you also just shared a lot of in the past, like it's been overwhelming to receive this type of support. So what are things that you have to share, if you're comfortable with that, around just like how do we take care of ourselves when we're overwhelmed?
That's a good question, because I'm also I'm also trying to figure that out myself. I actually just have really learning to take a step back and sometimes distancing myself from all of these opportunities, because it is very overwhelming and it is something I'm just starting to do. It's really just a lot of grounding myself, spending more time with family, because all of this, I'm starting to really realize is that when I started all of this, it's in COVID times. All of this has been on my phone. It almost feels materialistic. I haven't actually gotten out and spoken to an actual crowd of people, and I honestly don't know if I would be comfortable doing that with the amount of attention that I've gotten in the last few months. It's a lot of grounding myself, distancing myself, pacing myself. I have to learn to be comfortable with doing stuff like this. It takes time, and I actually have a really hard time saying no to opportunities like this, because it, like Wilfred said, it is really exciting when you are able to use your voice for stuff like this. But taking it slow, man, being patient with yourself, not jumping to things. My grandma taught me something really important that I think about almost every day, is that don't make decisions in the spur of the moment. Don't make decisions because people are waiting for your response. Make decisions, you got to sit with it, be patient with it. Take the opportunity, sit with it for about a week or a few days. And if it's not something you're comfortable with, it's okay to say no. And I'm starting to learn how to do that. But dealing with things that are overwhelming, I'm really still learning how to do that. And just, it's a lot of patience, man, and it's a lot of tears. Allowing myself to cry. But yeah, I'd love to. Oh, cool. I love these. I think this is a beautiful step in the right direction. Is things like these flashcards that you've made, Alyssa. It's so important, and I'm so excited. Thank you so much for this amazing opportunity.
Oops. I'm so happy, and just the fact that you say yes, but I think I've learned to, and we've shared that briefly, of just saying yes to things and saying no to things. It's hard and we learn, but I think just taking a step back, it's okay to rest. It's okay to recharge. It's okay to cry, right? Those are things that are needed. And with your permission, can I read these 10 messages that I asked for you to share? Or would you like to read them? I can go down the slide. I think your voice is beautiful. So would you like to read these, or yours? I just put them on Canva. Yeah, so we asked Annie to put together 10 messages from all that she's done online. And she's done this for others, because the fact is there's a lack of services that are available specifically for Inuit. So I'm going to just go down and you say it, and I will just keep going. And just to share, we're having these printed. So everyone here I've made note of, we're going to send you these in cards, and we're going to put them in wellness packages for every single person that participates in this event. And I'm sending her a bunch so she can just give them away. Yeah, so these are all just messages to put wherever you need to give them to someone who needs it, because they're beautiful. Yeah, so if you want to read them, I'll go through with you.
For sure. Okay, cool. This is so exciting. Okay, first one, stay alive for the quietness of the Nuna. Nuna is a translation of land. The quietness of the Nuna. That was my day 42. And then the second one, stay alive for the mornings when you wake up out camping. That was one of my favorite ones. That was day 4, one of my first ones. Stay alive for your first catch, whether it's something that you can look back on, or you can look forward to catching your first catch. Day 3. I love these. Stay alive for the Inuit Kalimayatuhangit principles. This principle is Biit Silmik or Biit Siramik. Each person has a valued contribution to his, her, or their community. Day 54. And then another IQ principle, stay alive for the Inuit Kalimayatuhangit principle, Inu Katigit Siamik. Inu Katigit Siamik is showing respect and having a caring attitude towards others. And this is the foundational to the Inuit ways of being. Day 55. Stay alive for intergenerational wisdom alongside intergenerational trauma. That was one of the things that I learned recently, which actually had a huge turning point in my life and on my healing journey, is that although there is so much intergenerational trauma, there's also so much intergenerational wisdom. And sometimes I think we forget that a lot. That day 118, I think that was a really important one. Stay alive for the people who are sober or getting sober or being sober. And I think this is one of the most powerful ways to fight colonialism. And one of the things I actually want to congratulate Wilfred on 19 months. So I think it was 19 months that he said sober. And that is so inspiring. And I constantly work towards being sober. But we're still really fighting that where I'm living. You know, it's very prevalent among a lot of youth, and it's really hard to get out of it, and it's really hard to get sober. And I think this is really important too. I'm gonna keep working so hard to, because I think it really is one of the most powerful ways to fight colonialism in these days. This is day 36.
You and I should have a conversation, not to interrupt so quickly, but we would speak on it. Gwich'in is what we say. Have strength and courage. It's not easy. I struggle with it yet, but I work with it, and it's really exciting when you reach as far as you have gone. Like 19 months is as far as I've ever been sober since I was 15 years old, and with that, it's like being reborn again. And I really encourage you, you don't have to do it forever. I don't even know if my plan is to do it forever. I'm actually just genuinely enjoying my sobriety. And I actually think what is important now is that I've changed my relationship with alcohol. I'm sorry, I didn't want to let that go without you speaking on it. I just wanted to say thank you and encourage you and anyone else who is making that effort, and to know that you're not alone, and you all have the strength to do it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I need words of encouragement like that more often. Thank you so much. It's really inspiring. Okay, number 8. Stay alive to one day realize the importance of feeling out our feelings, the good and the bad. Day 33. I think that's really important too, feeling out your feelings, allowing yourself to cry, man. I cry so much. Stay alive to realize the power you have when you love yourself. It's the most powerful thing we can do for ourselves and for the world. This is actually quoting my mom. This is something that my mom really taught me, is especially when I was in one of the harder moments of my life. This is something that she would share with me, is as long as you love yourself, you'll get through it. Day 27. Last but not least, stay alive for the quote, "You prove just how weak you are by being harsh to others. It's gentleness that requires strength." This was written by Shupang. This is day 17.
Thank you for just letting me ask you do that, but they're your words. And those beautiful images are taken by youth who have been in our programming in the last year. So it's so beautiful to see all those shared, and I think those messages are all beautiful. But again, yeah, everyone here, I've written down the names. We'll make sure we get a copy to you, and I'll send you a big batch, Annie. But I just want to be mindful of the time. It's almost 2:30. Is there anything else you two would like to share before we close this session today?
I'll just say thank you to all of you who have tuned in. Masi, Chish, Medu. Thank you guys for giving us your time. Thank you for listening. It's you know what we speak about today, what we talked about today is very, very important, and it's some of the most important things that should be talked about today. um, I would like to extend an invitation to any of you who want to get in contact with me, to talk about what we've talked about today, to keep in touch, because that is exactly how we get through COVID. That is exactly how we get through mental health situations, is to support each other, to love each other, and to cry when you need to cry, as Annie said. I could be a crybaby sometimes, and when it's out of me and it's gone, and I can let go of some things, and it's I could say that as a man, and I would hope any gender, any person has that ability to let themselves cry once in a while, because that's important. That is healing. That is letting go, and to stay strong. Stikat yuan, stikat yuan, stikat yuan, you all come from strong people. So stay strong. Have strength and courage. Again.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to everyone that took their time and to be available today, and for giving me a safe space to share myself like this. You know, the more that I do things like this, the more that I heal. And thank you to Shania for speaking, even though she's not here anymore. But thank you to Wilfred for also being open and vulnerable. You know, you said so many inspiring things, and I feel like I learned a lot today from what you shared. Thank you so much for that. And thank you to Alyssa and to everyone at Western Arctic Youth Collective for doing important work like this. And just like Wilfred said, it's so important to have conversations like this. The more that we're open, the more conversations that we have on topics like this, it's a journey to healing, and it's so important. And yeah, thank you so much. I was so excited to be here today. Thank you so much. Nakulik.
Nakumi, Kuyanaini, Masicho, Haicho. I'm so happy, and thank you, everyone. We're gonna close this session, and I put in a feedback form. Feedback is always really great when you do this and what's shared. So please fill it out. Do you get a self-care kit if you fill it up? But you guys will get that anyways. But yeah, we're gonna close off, and then at 3 o'clock we're gonna open our next session. There's a link on Facebook. Please listen in. Amy's here, so she's one of the people speaking, but we've got 2 other Yukon youth who are going to join us. So thank you so much. And Annie, Wilfred, so much lateral love to you folks. yeah, so much of appreciation for the honesty, the vulnerability, and what you both have been sharing here today. So grateful for that. All right. Woohoo. Bye, everybody.